A red-hot iron can mark a body in seconds, and the scar can decide a woman's future. Courts use branding for crimes like desertion or rebellion. Then neighbors do the policing because everyone can see the mark. But the trial details fade. How do marks lead to whips and cages? And which 20 devices hit women? Let's find out. Let's start with number 20, scaphism. Plutarch writes that a soldier named Mithridates faces scaphism under Artaxerxes II. 2 shallow boats clamp his body so only head and limbs show. Guards smear milk and honey, then keep feeding him. Sounds kind until the food keeps him alive for insects and the sun turns skin into wounds. Modern historians question Plutarch's details, yet they accept Persian rulers sometimes choose slow public execution for high offenders. For a woman without status, a charge tied to betrayal, poison, or rebellion can place her with traitors. Once that label sticks, the court cares more about order than her life ever. Pinned in place, the victim cannot swat flies or clean sores, and every bite grows worse. People walk by for days, staring, joking, learning. Pain plus shame becomes the teaching tool, because the body stays visible and helpless. Ask yourself, which spreads faster, screams or the gossip from witnesses outside? Scaphism may be rare, yet the idea spreads because it works as a story. One account can scare a whole province even when records stay thin. Public decay policy teaches obedience without soldiers. If rulers can turn skin into bait, what happens when they decide to keep the skin itself? Here comes number 19, flaying rack. Assyrian and Babylonian kings record flaying rebels and hanging skins on city walls, and Persian rulers inherit that habit. A rack can hold a body tight while cutters pull strips. Skin as proof makes the court's point visible. Would a crowd fear death more, or the reminder left behind forever? Status decides everything. An enslaved woman or captured foreigner has little legal shield once officials call her an accomplice to rebels, poisoners, or religious enemies. Identity gets erased along with pain, because beauty and recognition disappear under wounds. The ruler gains a warning that hangs longer than any speech afterward. Ancient royal inscriptions and later moral stories mention enemies losing noses, ears, or skin as warnings. Even when death comes quickly, a stretched hide can hang for weeks on gates. Visible punishment lasts while daily life continues, and every passerby learns to keep complaints private. How many rebellions die right there? Flaying also solves a ruler's problem. Proof. A corpse rots fast, but a skin display stays clear. Fear saves effort because guards patrol less when streets police themselves. After people accept skin on walls, they also accept bodies on stakes lifted high, so everyone sees the sentence from far away. Let's move to number 18. Impalement stake. Darius I says in the Behistun inscription that he orders a rebel leader impaled after crushing uprisings. Greek writers also describe Persian officials using stakes for major treason. Treason is a spectacle because the body becomes a sign. Why pick a method that stays visible from across a city square alone? Women enter this category when officials frame them as poisoners, plotters, or supporters of rival claimants. Once the enemy label lands, politics leads. Distance helps rulers because they can stand back while the stake does the work. The long display time warns crowds, and the outline reads from far away. Accounts describe the stake entering from below or through the torso, sometimes avoiding vital organs at first. That detail keeps victims alive for hours. Slow collapse teaches because the crowd watches blood soak wood and the body sag. Would you risk links to a rival after seeing that up close? A stake turns punishment into architecture, and it works with no equipment. One pole, one sentence, many witnesses. Rumor spreads fast when travelers carry the image to towns. After wood and height do their job, courts reach for heat and metal, like a cauldron that scares before it boils loudly. Next one is number 17. Boiling copper cauldron. Boiling appears across ancient and medieval law as an execution for treason, forgery, or poisoning. Courts use copper vessels built for work as killing tools. Heat becomes a weapon long before contact because steam and fire announce the sentence. Would you watch a pot prepared like that in a courtyard alone? In an empire with metalwork and trade routes, officials can adapt cauldrons from workshops to courtrooms. Liquids vary in stories: water, oil, even molten metal. Accusations of poison often target women, especially servants blamed for a death. A boiling sentence feels theatrical enough to satisfy anger and close questions quickly. Boiling also limits what remains afterward, which suits authorities who want fewer physical traces. Less evidence remains beyond burned fragments and memories. The real control starts earlier. People see flames under the pot and imagine their own skin. Records can stay vague, yet rumors fill gaps and fear spreads fast. That fear can push confessions before any trial because people believe the pot waits. Threat works first. Once heat becomes a courtroom tool, rulers punish without fire too, using weight and breath. Now think of a board on a chest, stones piling up, air fading while the crowd counts stones. Quick check. If you're still with me, hit subscribe so you catch the bigger reveal coming in a minute. Let's move to number 16. Stone pressing board. Pressing with stones shows up in many pre-modern legal systems as a way to break suspects or kill the dishonored. A board spreads force across the chest, then stones add more. Weight replaces blades. How long can lungs work when each rock steals space? Crowds learn the answer in silence. Local governors can do it with almost no tools, which makes it easy to repeat. For women accused of adultery, witchcraft, or aiding rebels, the symbol hits hard. Society weighs her down, literally. Bystanders may add stones themselves, turning punishment into participation and making everyone feel tied to the verdict. The injury path stays grim and predictable. Ribs crack, lungs fail, organs bruise, bleeding builds. Historical medical descriptions of crushing injuries explain how broken ribs can pierce organs. Damage hides inside while skin looks calmer. Survival can mean chronic pain and disability, and neighbors remember when she struggles to breathe. Pressing also recruits the crowd, which locks the town into silence later. Shared blame spreads when many hands place stones. After weight becomes a public tool, interrogators can switch to private damage, using suspension methods that dislocate shoulders with little blood. If crushing scares you, imagine hanging by your arms. Here comes number 15. Strappato suspension. Strappato, suspension by arms bound behind the back, appears in many torture traditions because it wrecks joints fast. The victim hangs by wrists, and shoulders can dislocate. Body weight does the work. Why do officials like it? It can leave fewer cuts, so denial comes easier when questions start later. Early Islamic and later Iranian sources describe similar hanging methods in interrogation rooms, often used on slaves and political suspects. For women, the harm adds humiliation because posture collapses and clothing shifts. Pain meets exposure. Interrogators can jerk the rope to demand answers, then jerk again when replies fail. Doctors who study torture survivors note shoulder injuries from suspensions can last for life, with nerve pain and weakness that never clears. Long-term damage matters because it ruins work and caregiving after release. Would you carry water, grind grain, or lift a child with a joint that slips and burns? That future fear makes confessions more likely. Strappato works best in secret, before trial, when no audience can interfere. Threat drives silence, even if the rope stays unused. After hidden damage becomes acceptable, rulers return to public hardware, since crowds must be trained too. That is where spiked poles show up, turning stillness into pain in daylight. Let's move to number 14. Spiked execution. Persian and regional authorities use poles and stakes for tying prisoners upright, lifting bodies, and staging punishment near gates. Adding iron points changes everything. Spikes catch light and announce danger from far away. Why would a ruler want the device seen before it is used? Fear works while people shop. A woman can be tied first, then pushed so spikes bite shoulders, ribs, or thighs while she still breathes. Officials can keep her alive for questioning or leave her there as crowds pass. Markets become classrooms when daily life moves around the suffering. That is the trick. The warning never stops. In a culture where honor and appearance matter, a public pinning can punish an entire household. If the victim comes from a noble family, gossip hits parents, siblings, and future marriages. Shame spreads outward faster than blood. Even for low-status women, the message stays clear. Protection ends right now. A spiked pole also reduces costs, since one structure frightens many people without extra guards. Fear replaces patrols. After towns learn to avoid that spot, rulers can extend the warning beyond a single day by hanging bodies in cages over roads and bridges. Ever walked under one and felt fear? Next one is number 13, hanging cage. Hanging bodies in cages or chains appears across empires as a way to extend punishment after death. Persian and later Iranian practice includes exposure on towers, gates, and bridges. The display stays active because travelers keep seeing it. Why choose a road site? Every passerby becomes a messenger for the empire. For women labeled traitors, poisoners, or corrupting influences, the cage removes burial and privacy at the same time. Sometimes death comes first, then the corpse hangs. Other times, the victim starts alive, cramped with food or water scarce. Sun and cold take turns finishing the sentence while everyone watches daily. Refusal of burial matters deeply in many ancient societies. Without rites, families fear the soul cannot rest, so officials punish the body and afterlife together. Ritual becomes leverage. Relatives may stay silent because arguing risks more exposure and more shame. Do you see the pressure shift to her family as well? A cage also saves labor, since the body keeps warning people without guards. Fear does patrols. After exposure becomes normal, authorities torture out of sight too, using tight boxes that deny sleep and movement. Ever wondered why a wooden box breaks people faster than iron? It traps the mind hard. Let's move to number 12, confinement box. Confinement boxes show up in many legal systems because they cost little and control everything. The box can be so tight you cannot sit, stretch, or lie down. Space becomes punishment. How long before cramps, swelling, and panic start? It can start fast because the body needs movement to cope. For officials managing dungeons, a narrow box means more prisoners in less space. The victim cannot change position, so circulation worsens and pain stacks. Control feels. For women, guards may open the box to mock, throw waste, or force pleading because humiliation can break resistance even when bruises stay hidden. Modern studies of confinement link it to sleep loss, hallucinations, and long-term anxiety, even without beatings. Mind starts bending when time has no markers. Authorities can use the box as a prelude, keeping someone trapped for days, then pulling her out for whipping or branding while she looks confused outside. Boxes break people quietly, which helps officials avoid witnesses and paperwork. Silence becomes an advantage. After the box, courts can shift punishment into the street with restraints that force a slow walk and signal guilt. A spiked collar makes every nod hurt, and crowds notice, so who can hide anything anymore? Here comes number 11. Spiked wooden collar. Collars and change-style boards appear across Asia as punishment for debt and crime. The Persian world sits on trade routes, so restraints travel too. Spikes change rules when added inside a wooden collar, because every movement presses points into the neck. How do you sleep with that collar on tonight? Authorities can parade women through markets wearing these collars after charges tied to shameful behavior. People see the spikes and react, staring, stepping back. Crowds learn limits without a lecture. The collar can also block eating and drinking, depending on its width, so even comfort becomes a struggle outside. Over time, punctures can infect, nerves can flare, and the collar can even choke if it shifts wrong. Injuries linger long after removal, because marks on jaw and shoulders can last for months. That matters socially. Neighbors read scars as proof of guilt. Do you see how scars become labels? A collar makes guilt visible while the person still walks, which saves guards and spreads fear. Walking warning sign. Courts also want marks that stay after restraints come off, so they use heat. A branding iron needs seconds, then a scar follows for life. Who trusts you after that now? Let's move to number 10. Branding irons. Branding has a long history in slavery and criminal justice because a scar works like permanent paperwork. Masters mark ownership. Courts mark criminals. Red-hot iron does the job in seconds. In regions under Persian control, brands can signal desertion or rebellion. Would you risk that scar every time you meet strangers? For women, branding can tie to sexuality or domestic roles, which hits social life hard. A mark may signal adultery, prostitution, or service in a disfavored household. Reputation drops fast because people see the scar and decide for you. A brand can change self-image and ruin marriages for years after. Medical writers describe deep burns that damage skin and tissue below, raising infection risk and nerve pain. Seconds create decades of consequences. Officials like branding because it needs no long setup, just heat and force. After the mark lands, neighbors do the watching, and the court saves guards for threats. Branding marks one spot, but some punishments aim to cover the whole back. Wide scars talk louder than a single symbol. That is why severe flogging keeps returning in records, especially with whips fitted with bone or metal pieces. A strike can grab skin, so how does healing even start? Here comes number 9. Barbed whip. Flogging appears across the ancient world as a standard punishment for slaves, soldiers, and convicts. Some whips include bone or metal to increase damage. Barbed whip design matters because hooks catch skin and tear it. Each strike leaves marks for years. Scars change status when neighbors can read them daily. Persian administrators running estates and garrisons rely on flogging to enforce discipline with simple tools. A barbed whip needs little training, yet it can open strips of skin on the back or legs. Status shapes lashes for women in domestic or palace service, since accusation from above can trigger many blows. Ancient accounts of severe flogging describe heavy bleeding, exposed muscle, and scars that never fade. Clothing can tear early, which adds public humiliation. Humiliation multiplies pain because the crowd reads the body while the beating continues. Scars can limit work and safety, and they keep the accusation alive in talk. Officials can order a counted number of lashes, giving the punishment a clean, measured look. Numbers hide cruelty. To make the lesson louder, courts often tie the victim to a fixed post in a busy place so nobody can miss it. When a market learns sound, who steps up? Let's move to number 8. Whipping post. A whipping post turns punishment into routine. Officials tie wrists high or low and deliver a set number of lashes while people watch. Post stays waiting in a marketplace, so everyone knows what it means. Why keep it a visible day? Because the threat works even when nobody is tied there. Persian and regional courts can pair the post with fines, exile, or confiscation of property, so the punishment hits the body and wallet. For women, the post adds extra risk: torn clothing, exposed skin, and jeering. Shame sticks hard because neighbors remember the scene. Pain ends, but does the shame end? One post can serve hundreds of sentences, which saves officials time and equipment. Structure becomes a symbol that even children recognize. Witnesses go home and retell what they saw, reinforcing fear without extra patrols. Compare that to private torture. The post needs no secrecy. It works because everyone participates by watching. Public lashes leave marks, so interrogators also use methods that hide damage. Feet become targets because the face can look normal. Bastinado, or falaka, strikes the soles, and swelling makes walking torture. Imagine leaving a cell with clean skin, yet every step burns. Would you confess to avoid that walk? Next one is number 7. Bastinado/falaka. Foot beating, known as bastinado or falaka, has deep roots in Asia and the Middle East. Victims are restrained while rods strike bare soles. Soles hold nerves, so pain spikes fast, even when the upper body looks normal. Why do officials like that contrast? They deny marks while she limps. Medical research on falaka survivors reports chronic foot pain and lasting nerve or tissue damage. Hidden injuries last because swelling and bruising sit deep. Persian and Iranian interrogators use it inside prisons on political suspects and low-status women accused of crimes. How do you work when every step shocks you? Falaka creates long-term control. A woman who limps struggles to visit friends, earn money, or escape danger, so her world shrinks. Mobility becomes leverage. Officials like it because it punishes after release without extra guards. Hurt the feet, and daily life becomes the prison, and the pain keeps asking questions. Interrogators can stop and restart the beating to force answers, turning pain into a dial. Pressure becomes a bargain. When courts want a quiet end, they move to the neck. A garrote loop tightens the cord to cut off breath with little blood. How do you fight a weapon you cannot see? Let's move to number 6, choking garrote loop. The garrote shows up in empires as a clean way to kill. A cord, belt, or band circles the neck, then a stick or screw tightens it. Breath gets stolen first, and speech disappears quickly. Why would rulers prefer this? It avoids blood and can happen away from witnesses easily. Women condemned for treason, intimate betrayal, or palace intrigue can receive this sentence in private, where elites control the story. Relatives may hear illness or sudden collapse even when suspicion spreads. Secrecy protects status because no public scene invites debate. The court gains deniability, and fear still spreads outside anyway. Garrote death feels helpless. No blade to dodge, just tightening pressure until voice stops. Silence arrives first. Modern forensics shows strangulation can leave severe internal injury with few external marks, which suits deniability. Would you accuse anyone when proof stays scarce? That uncertainty can control a palace for years on. Killing suits elites, but courts still use public humiliation for offenses. Wooden stocks trap the head and hands and let the crowd do the rest. Trade routes spread the idea, and law adapts it. Imagine hours stuck in one pose, open to insults and grabbing hands. Would you forget that? Here comes number 5, pillory stocks. Stocks and pillory frames rely on ridicule as much as restraint. Along trade routes touching Persian territory, similar restraints appear and get adapted to local rules. The street becomes a cell because the person's head and hands are locked in view. Why is this powerful? Strangers add pain, and gossip adds years. Authorities use stocks for offenses seen as embarrassing, like market cheating or public disobedience. For women, charges often focus on clothing rules or sexual conduct. Shame drives obedience because neighbors watch. The victim cannot cover her face or move hands to protect herself. When bystanders feel safe, cruelty grows fast. Physical strain builds with time. Knees ache, shoulders cramp, and sunburns exposed skin. At night, insects and colds join in. Time adds pressure because the body stays stuck in one angle. When guards unlock frame, damage keeps going. Everyone has seen humiliation. That memory follows her home for years. Stocks use the crowd as the weapon, but interrogators want pain in private too. Small tools travel easily and target hands, which matter for work. Thumbscrew clamps apply pressure in tiny steps, so each turn feels like a choice. Can you hold out past the next click when bone is next? Next one is number 4, thumbscrew clamps. Thumbscrew clamps belong to interrogation toolkits because they focus intense pain on a small joint. The device grips a thumb, then a screw tightens. Pain rises in clicks, so the torturer controls the pace. Why does that matter? It lets officials threaten one more turn, then pause, watch you break. Later examples survive in museums, and torture studies discuss similar pressure devices across Western Asia. The idea travels well because screws and wedges are simple. For women under suspicion, damaged hands threaten survival, since sewing and grinding grain keep households running. Officials like that leverage. A confession can be cheaper than a disability. Interrogators like thumbscrews because they can raise and release pain in small steps. Control stays precise. One turn, pause, question, then another turn if answers fail. That rhythm wears people down fast, and it creates a clear choice: speak now or feel the next click. See how time becomes pressure? Thumbscrews focus on one joint, but punishers also use violence when they want speed. Blunt force spreads fear in a different way. Nail-studded clubs show up in policing, and crowd attacks cheap to make and easy to swing. Imagine nails punching skin with every hit, and who proves it later? Let's move to number 3, nail-studded club. Studded clubs appear in warfare, policing, and punishment across cultures because they are cheap and need little training. A stick with nails turns a beating into punctures. Nails change injuries by opening skin and crushing bone at the same time. Why does that matter? It raises risk and blurs responsibility. Persian garrisons and city guards can use nail-studded clubs because the parts are simple. One swing can break ribs or crush joints. One weapon spreads fear fast. Women accused of sorcery, adultery, or treachery can face these clubs before any trial, when mobs strike before law and nobody writes reports. After an attack, authorities can dismiss injuries as private disputes, even when guards look away. Blame stays muddy. Medical knowledge shows repeated blunt trauma can cause internal bleeding and organ damage. Collapse can come hours later, which confuses witnesses, and that confusion gives powerful people room to deny everything later. Clubs cause messy harm, but interrogators also prefer controlled damage they can dial up. Tension feels controlled. A wooden stretching frame ties wrists and ankles to ropes, then tightens slowly during questions. Imagine hearing joints pop, then hearing the winch pause. How much truth would you trade for that pause? Next one is number 2, wooden stretching frame. Stretching frames act like racks using leverage instead of blades. In the Persian sphere, rulers can use ropes, beams, and winches to pull suspects under tension. Ropes do damage gradually. Why does gradual matter? It lets an interrogator ask a question, tighten, wait for the scream, then tighten again harder. For women suspected of hiding information, the frame offers a cruel bargain. Officials tighten ropes, ask questions, then ease slightly when answers please them. Pain becomes pricing for every word. That start-stop control can break resistance fast because hope appears in tiny doses. See how hope becomes a weapon here? Victims can hear joints pop as tension rises, which adds fear before any question ends. Sound adds fear. Dislocations and torn ligaments can disable for life. After release, carrying water or holding a child can trigger pain again. How do you rebuild when your arms fail you every day after? A frame can end, but the damage can stay, which is why it scares people. Lasting harm warns others. When courts want punishment that never pauses, they lock iron on the body. Spiked shackles press into skin with step reopening wounds. Imagine walking in those and trying to act normal. And the last is number 1, Spiked iron shackles. Shackles exist in every slave system and prison network, and Persian and later Iranian contexts use iron restraints to control captives and move prisoners. Adding inward points changes the purpose. Spiked shackles punish movement itself. Why add spikes? It cuts skin during movement, so guards work less and fear rises. Each step presses spikes into skin, reopening wounds that struggle to heal. For women forced to work in fields, mills, or households, that creates a trap. No safe speed exists. Move quickly and spikes cut deeper. Move slowly and guards accuse laziness. Infection can follow, bringing fever and disability too. The cruel part is time. Shackles can stay for months, day after day, far from public view. Time multiplies pain, while outsiders see a prisoner walking and assume suffering ended. The person can look upright, yet every step hurts. How do you explain pain people cannot see until it breaks? Spiked shackles turn restraint into torture with one small design change. Small change, huge result. They train everyone watching. When captives limp, obedience rises. A guard can point at ankles and stay silent, and the lesson lands. If a ring can do that, what else can power build this fast? Keep that uneasy feeling, because one device leads to another, and the pattern keeps growing. Another secret is out, but the next one is bigger. Click the next video now.